Hello, Rachel here. I hope you'll enjoy my adventure in SlowTVStitchery. Welcome. So, good morning and welcome to my first ever attempt at recording my embroidery as I'm going. I don't know how much I will say, because embroidering and talking at the same time is a skill that I've never had to develop before. So we'll learn as we go. The project that I'm working on is an all-new depiction of the royal family of Amarna, which is mentioned in passing in Mary Chubb's book Nefertiti Lived Here, which has been the inspiration of a lot of my embroidery over the last 10 years or so, in fact. Now, in this case, I've chosen to do the spiral version, and generally speaking, you would certainly not start from the center of a piece, because that creates a sort of static effect which isn't very appealing, in fact. So I had quite a lot of thinking to do regarding where I was going to start, because what I try to do with my embroidery is tell a story not just in the picture, but in the way I choose to represent, apply the story, apply the technique. So in this case, one of the things that I was considering was that there is a great deal of debate about Akhenaten's motives for promoting Atenism. Everything from it was a genuine religious revelation to it was an entirely cynical ploy intended to break the power of the priests of Amun at Thebes. Now, we know now that whatever his, how shall I put this, whatever his contribution to the development of Egyptian art, because of the tenets of Atenism, however fascinating he may be to us, whatever he may have contributed to poetry. There is a poem in praise of the Aten which is really quite startling, which apparently he wrote, or he is said to have written. And in spite of all that, we know, perhaps because of all that, we know he was not exactly what we would now consider a model monarch. He didn't have much care for the ordinary people, as far as we can tell. The burial grounds of the common people are now being excavated, and they are by and large indictments of social care of the time. They seem to have died young, they seem to have died after many years of hard physical labour, and they weren't very well nourished. So I wondered whether I wanted to tell the story of Akhenaten as the religious, perhaps as someone who'd received what he genuinely believed to be a revelation of divine will, or Akhenaten as the cynical politician who did this moved his entire court purely out of political motives. And I spent quite a lot of time thinking about this and trying to work out which story I wanted to tell and how I wanted to represent it. And in the end, I decided that the story I was going to tell was the one I thought Mary Chubb, who wrote the original book, would have hoped would have been true. So I'm sticking with the idea that whatever his failings in extending his revelations to others, he genuinely thought he had received a revelation which demanded that he take the particular action we've seen. So I have centered the spiral of my spiral, or nue, on his heart, very approximately. Very approximately indeed. Mary was interested in people. She was interested in people, whoever they were, pretty much, whatever they'd done, and almost always, certainly in her writings, I don't think I ever have read her other than giving credit to someone for humanity, for intelligence, for goodwill. She's never snarky. She never seems to assume the worst of anyone. And that is an extremely refreshing set of sentiments these days. Now, you will see this is not going to grow quickly. I am still trying to work out how close I need to stitch this. The thread that I'm using at the moment is a Japanese flat silk, because that spreads nicely, provided I don't get it over twisted as I'm stitching. As I was thinking about what to do, which spiral to choose, I prepared all the needles I might need if I were going to start from his head and do his crown and the gold and the aten and the background. So I think I'm well set up now for quite a few stitching sessions. I haven't yet decided whether I'm going to record every session or whether every now and again you will find that I have leaped ahead because I've been stitching and not recording it. If anyone has an idea of which they would prefer to see, please drop me a line. You can contact me via my blog, Virtuoso Adventures. Many of you probably have my email address already. I've prepared the calico by drawing the design on it, which is much simplified from the original stele. I found a couple of photographs online of the original stele. In fact, there are 2 or 3 versions of this design of a family group. In one, Akhenaten has a daughter in his arms. In the other, it's the one that I've chosen where he's teasing her with something. I've chosen this one because it's the one that Mary Chubb mentioned in her book, Nefertiti Lived Here. So obviously, since all my embroideries in this project are a response to that book, that's clearly the right one to choose. It's quite difficult to talk and embroider at the same time. Normally on a framed embroidery like this, I would have one hand below and one above, and when I get myself better set up I might be able to do that. But at the moment the gold thread that I'm using is still being quite stroppy because the spiral is still so tight, and it's just very much easier if I use both hands to control the thread.
This program was produced in Cambridge, on the other side of London, by Elizabeth Park. Special mention to Alexander for April Sun being brilliant. Very quiet. Well done, Alexander. I'm Ian Skelly. Do join me in my homemade Paddy cell tomorrow morning for 20 more percent. Anytime from now.
Discover the very best of live music making from across the UK and Europe on Radio.
With a bit of luck, I can come back and patch any bits of the spiral that I feel aren't quite sufficiently solidly covered. It's quite hard, in fact, to see because the silk thread is so fine. It can be quite hard to see how much it's spreading to cover the thread and when it isn't. Well, listening to Donald MacLeod talking about Beethoven on Radio 3, I can't help but feel that he's a very appropriate composer for working on Akhenaten. They sound to have been similarly driven and autocratic. And also either created themselves or stimulated the creation of some really wonderful art. Now, I can't actually see very well how much of the stitching, how much of the gold thread I'm covering here, but I suspect not as much as I would like, because I keep seeing the cracks in the foil. I'm going to stop now and have a look at what I've recorded. So that's all for this episode. Thanks for watching and happy stitching. Bye!